Jeff Journey, number 67. First of all, the wedding. The wedding went really well. It was kind of a rainy day, but it wasn't raining at the time of the wedding, and I think it went off really well. There were a lot of minor issues, which hopefully Double J compensates in some way in the future. But my speech went off well. Kristen took a video of the whole thing, which is awesome, which I have on YouTube and Facebook and such. And Joshua and Ashley did well. My first joke worked, which was huge to relieve the tension because a lot of people were kind of tense, especially because of the rain and whatnot. And it went awesome. The vows, which I talked to my Uncle Rick about it, I should have shortened them down. I gave them a script. I gave mostly Jay a script to look at and see where he'd like the spacing, and I'd kind of gone over it, and it was most of them were too long. As I was doing the vows, I shortened them up to make them easier, but I should have done that right away. And then at one point, this was really weird because I noticed this when I was doing the sand ceremony introduction. Essentially, I was supposed to say intricate, and I said delicate. Really weird when I said it so confidently. It was quite funny. I'm probably going to write up a blog post kind of analyzing that speech and how I did that and whatnot. I also posted those because some of my kids, one kid specifically, wanted to see. She's a 14-year-old girl, is really interested in stuff all over the world, a bunch of different cultures. Just while I've been teaching her for the last less than a year, she's been to Australia and Dubai and the United States, and she's going to England and France here in the next couple of weeks, and they travel all over around the place checking out different cultures. We talked when she was coming to the United States. We talked about the safety of subways and stuff like this. But she'd asked me about American weddings before, and it's kind of a big subject. There's some variants in it. We went over it a little bit, but she really wanted to see this video, and I sent her the script I wrote so she could check that out. And she really wanted to see this video, so I can't share. YouTube is blocked. Facebook is blocked. Google Drive and Google Photos, those are all blocked in China, right? Like all of the internet is blocked in China, essentially. They have their own little weird world. It's kind of like how the marsupials developed in Australia. They were sealed off. So the internet in China is sealed off. It's its own weird little world. They, I believe, recently, they deleted VPNs a little while ago, virtual private networks. And I believe even recently they blocked maybe all of YouTube, maybe simple Wikipedia, which is really kind of detrimental to my teaching. But nevertheless, so they have their own websites, and I have WeChat, which is a chat app based out of China, and then there's Weibo, which is kind of like their Facebook, and Youku, which is their YouTube. Obviously, they just basically copied the name of YouTube there and made Youku. So I've been thinking about putting stuff on these websites for a long time and starting a teaching company based out of China, but there's issues in dealing with China because they can't access all of our stuff, so you have to build a website specifically. Do you set up a bank account in China to transfer money internationally? And there's issues. The other issue is that I can't read Chinese. I don't know any Chinese. So Weibo and Youku are not designed for English speakers. They're in Chinese. Now, the browser will translate them, but obviously everything's not perfect, and some of the spots where it's running JavaScript and stuff doesn't translate. Nevertheless, I set that up a couple of days ago, so if you look for me, it's like weibo.com/Jeffrey Martin, youku.com/Jeffrey Martin. I am on there, and the only thing that I've put up so far is that wedding video, so they can see it, which is cool. And on a slightly side note, maybe some of you saw my Facebook post about there was a kid, Andy, that when I told him what my website was, jeffreyalexandermartin.com, which China blocks the pictures of, but not the words apparently, so people can read it, but they can't see the pictures, which is really odd. I mean, it's not like my pictures are very crazy or anything. And when I told him that was my website, he really had a hard time believing I was the real Jeffrey Alexander Martin, because he had been to that website before, had heard of it, and he thought I was famous. So it's the first person that ever accused me of being famous. But my views in China keep going up. I get basically just as many views from China as from the United States on my blog now, which is pretty crazy. So, maybe there's a little bit of truth in what he's saying. My popularity is going up. I don't think it's considered famous yet. It's up to, like, I don't know, 100 views a week or something like that. Anyways, completely different subject. Neoteny. Neoteny is the retention of childlike traits into adulthood, just like dogs are essentially baby wild dogs, right? Dogs are baby canines or puppies essentially their entire life. I was talking about there was a new study done on wolves versus dogs, and dogs are much more aggressive because they get a much more structured hierarchy of dependence and obedience, whereas wolves are more cooperative and it allows them to problem solve on their own better. They essentially have more initiative, they can follow others' gazes better by relating to their cues and all this stuff, which is very interesting. And to a large extent, the more wolf-like dogs are, the more wolf-like they'll be. So, like shepherds, like German shepherds, are actually significantly less aggressive overall than poodles or Labrador retrievers because the German shepherd will be more cooperative, whereas the lab or the poodle, they're even more neotenous, right? They're more puppy-like throughout their entire life, so they're more of this obedient, dominant hierarchy that's very strict, which is really interesting. Anyways, this relates back to humans being a neotenous ape, right? We're baby-like, childlike our entire lives. It's kind of like we never fully mature. And so I'm a neotenous ape, but I'm even more than that, a neotenous ape, right? Which I've realized a number of years ago that I'm fairly neotenous. I'm kind of childlike in a lot of ways, which I haven't really done anything with. You know, it's an insight, but I don't know what to do with that. But I was thinking about it more in relation to personality traits recently. So my natural creativity is really high because my openness and my IQ are both in the top couple of percent, right? And I mean, my IQ is 98th percentile. My openness is somewhere right around there. I think 96th percentile, 97th percentile, right in there. Top few percent. So these, well, for instance, with writers, a lot of writers are like really afraid of losing ideas, so they don't want to share ideas. I think it's the weirdest thing because like you could just make up a new idea, like right now. Like I could just take this painting behind me, which is my painting. I could just take that painting and make up a story. It really doesn't seem that hard to come up with the idea. Executing it seems a lot harder to me. And I sometimes, well, I think a lot of times we think of other people like ourselves, and I thought everyone would be like that, but a lot of people are opposite. A lot of people tell me they have issues coming up with new ideas like that, and I mean, it's very true. It's just hard for me to get into that perspective because it's not for me. But I have a hard time executing. Some people don't have a hard time executing, which is really weird to me. So that's essentially your conscientiousness scores. So my conscientiousness scores are 0th percentile. That's right. That means out of 100 people, I would be the least conscientious. And out of 1,000 people, I would still be the least conscientious. And that's industriousness and orderliness. Now, to a certain extent, you can consciously try to compensate for that. You can try to be conscientious, even though you're just not naturally. Like if you just let yourself be natural, there's certain ways you're going to be. And that I'm going to be very unorganized, which I'm not. I'm just not organized. Some people see me that way sometimes because in specific contexts, I really try hard to be, but I have to try hard. It does not come naturally. It's going against the grain. And industriousness, which, you know, a lot of people think I've done a lot of stuff and fairly industrious. And I mean, the health issues have clamped down on that a bit over the last couple of years. But even there, I've done a lot of stuff. But that's more of a non-natural reaction, right? My natural reaction, like I could just sit around and read a little bit and be really, that's my natural, normal state. So I have to push against that, overcome it to some extent. So this is really interesting that I have this really high creativity naturally and really low conscientiousness essentially. Now if we add in, well, think of it this way, creativity is essentially openness and IQ, right? Because if you can recognize patterns and you know a bunch of stuff and you're really open to new ideas that just spring out of you. So essentially openness plus IQ, creativity. I was thinking about this with conscientiousness, but I also have really high neuroticism traits. So that's volatility and withdrawal. Not as high as my openness, not as low as my conscientiousness, but they're in like the 80th some percentile, right? And so I have this natural tendency to withdraw from situations, anything that I'm uncomfortable with, and then I'm a little volatile, right? Naturally. But I've worked on those both quite a bit. Now, if we think about neuroticism and conscientiousness is almost a synonym with productivity. It's being organized and doing stuff, right? Taking action. It's almost a synonym with productivity. Neuroticism is, and it's hard to fill in just one word, but it's a lot of like worrying, being emotionally upset, and trying to get away from stuff. It's all of that together. Those two things together are maturity, actually, right? They're just what we think of as maturity, which is really interesting, right? So kids like immature people even don't want to do the things that they don't want to do, even if they have to do them. They're not particularly organized or orderly. If they don't like something, they tend to withdraw from it. They tend to be volatile. They get sad about something that doesn't go well. They get angry about something they can't get. Right. And the opposite of that is an adult. Like if you can't have something you don't want, then you take the responsible, mature view of that. You don't get angry or depressed. If there's a situation you're not comfortable with, you still confront it. You don't withdraw from it. You organize things and you're orderly, and you do things that you have to do even if you don't want to do. This is a definition of maturity, basically pure and simple. So essentially, neotenous apes are less mature, just like dogs are neotenous canines, and they're less mature essentially. And so I'm even a less mature version of a less mature ape. But I think that to a certain extent might negatively correlate with creativity, and because they seem to go together in a lot of people, not always, right? There's not going to be like a law there, like a strict rule, but I think there could be a tendency. And so that natural creativity, I don't have to worry about. I think I don't have to worry about the creativity. And I've written a number of articles coming up with ideas and stuff, and it kind of seems, it started to feel like a waste of time to me, because it's like I can just come up with ideas all day. It's not a huge deal to me. But this maturity, this low neuroticism, high conscientiousness, which is the exact opposite of me, right? I'm high neuroticism, low conscientiousness. This is what I have to consciously develop, which is very interesting and a useful insight to let creativity go, because it's going to be there anytime I need it, and to bring maturity in because it's not there naturally. Also, other news, I sold the Buick because I bought that Lincoln, and I sold the Buick for $350, which, it was, I mean, it moved down the road, but it was not legal to drive or anything. So $350, I thought was pretty decent out of it. I got another computer, which I don't have with me here. My friend John brought it to me, which was excellent, and I got it up and going and installed all my programs, right? The weird teaching programs and stuff that I need on there, which is so cool. De Montfort Literature, which is the very unique publishing company in England that I applied for, to kind of have like a fellowship type thing. They kind of like sponsor you, I guess is a decent way. They pay you to work before you've created a novel. They said they're way behind in looking through applications. It's really weird. They're like delaying the process. I'm not sure exactly why or what's going on with that. They also do personality testing as the next step, which I'm guessing going to fail, because they're probably looking for someone that's conscientious and also creative, because conscientiousness is the trait that most aligns with success. So, but we'll see. Anyways, it's been too long of a delay compared to what they said it was going to be, but I've messaged them a bunch of times in various different formats and ways, and they said there's going to be a delay, so potentially I'm still in the running for that, which, I mean, that would be a life-changing opportunity completely. So, I mean, it would be really cool. We'll see how it goes. I haven't heard from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire again, and I'm guessing I'm not going to. They said it would be like 6 weeks, and I only did that like a week ago or something. But I flopped that interview. They do Ooh, I'm not supposed to share anything about Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That's like one of the rules. Anyways, it was different than the show and different than I expected, and it threw me off a little bit. And I super obviously got some of the questions wrong. By the time we were moving on to the next question, I knew I got the previous question wrong a couple of times. So that was not good. Like a week ago, maybe a little bit longer than a week ago, I fixed the riding lawnmower. I had to take off the wheel and get underneath to where the clutch engages and whatnot. And so wrenching on the riding lawnmower, and that messed up my spine. I have to be really careful with that asymmetrical stuff, like reaching under, grabbing something, pulling, pushing, twisting, especially with one arm, especially hard when you're focused on something else. Really careful with that. But my strength training with little weights, I moved from 3-pound weights to 6-pound weights, and that seems to be going pretty good still. So as long as it's really controlled, really in certain lines of motion, not odd motions, so not extremely useful for actually working on anything, but I keep feeling stronger. I keep losing weight. I'm down to less than 180, right? One time I was up over 235 pounds. One time I think I was like 35% body fat. Now I'm in the teens. I think this morning, last night, something like that, I was like 18% body fat. So I'll keep going down because definitely want to get down to probably at least like 12. But feeling pretty good, which is a good indicator that the diet is helping a ton and helping with my hormones as well. Very interesting stuff. I'm looking into apitherapy, which is bee therapy, bee venom therapy. But I'm also trying to, because I have some allergies now that I didn't really used to have, and like I have basically an allergic reaction to honey now, which is really weird, and a ton of other food. I'm going to try to expose myself to some of those and develop a resistance over time, like starting with 1 drop of honey every couple of days, because I feel it in my throat when I do that. And we'll see if I can develop any resistance to that stuff. Honey contains a small amount of pollen, so possibly that would help with allergies too. And we'll see how it goes. That's an experiment. I mean, and then on the other diet experiment, so yesterday, had been 14 days since I started the idea of cheating, right? Cheating for 1 meal every 2 weeks. And so this weekend, Mom and I are probably going to go down to Grand Haven to some of the chocolate shops and try some chocolate. I have to be careful because I can't try too many different things, otherwise I don't know what's causing an issue, which kind of sucks because, if you get 1 cheat meal every 2 weeks, you'd like to eat like some of everything. But it's not going to work that way. And if I don't react too badly, I'm going to react. If I don't react too badly for too long, then it's worth it, I think. But if I react too badly or it's too long, then it's not worth it. But I need to try different things, I think, every 2 weeks. Like maybe one time I'll try spaghetti. And that sounds so good right now. That would be so good. But this week I think it's going to be chocolate. And I've tried Moscato in the past, and that actually wasn't too bad now. So things are obviously changing on a metabolic level especially over the last 6 months. And I believe that's all. All right. Probably a bunch of other stuff, but I haven't written anything down. So I want you to have a good day, and I'll see you in Jeff's Journey episode 68 next time. Bye.